Well, Rodney Walker is with us today. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Doing fine.
Now, your
Yeah.
book that you've got out now is called Five Letters from Prison That Have Changed the World. So, is it
Yeah.
pretty much self explanatory what the content of the book is?
Pretty much. There might be some surprises for a few. We
Hmm.
did we did throw in a bonus letter. So there are actually
Ooh.
six men whose letters we actually go into, but five of them are key history makers, and you recognize their faces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a few, probably some of the most famous people in the last 100 years or so. You've got all sorts of different people: Hitler, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi. I mean, who would you say is the most perhaps controversial of those?
Well, definitely I would have to say Hitler.
Yeah.
Hitler. He and there's no way we don't want to put him on a pedestal in any way.
Mm.
But he did write a letter which changed public policy, and that's actually the thesis is that all of these letters from these men have changed public policy in their governments. And
Yeah.
with the change of public policy comes a change in how other countries relate to you. So you change the
Mm.
world in effect.
Yeah. Is Hitler really controversial, though? Because there isn't some sort of mass disagreement. Most people have the same view that Hitler was a bad guy.
Right, right. And I suppose looking at it from that point of view, Uh, I guess he's not as controversial as you would think, but
Mm.
just coupling him with champions of like Mandela or Martin Luther King Jr.,
Yeah.
it's kind of odd to see them lumped in the same category.
Yeah. In a way, you couldn't really get more different from some of these people.
Yeah, yeah. But we do. It is more like a history book. It's an objective, like a history book. In fact, we're going to try to get it into our school system as
Yeah.
supplemental reading for history.
Mm.
Yes.
And I suppose, as well as these big names, you've got some lesser known names. Do you think that, even though they were lesser known names, of course, these letters still changed the world in some way, right?
That's right. That's right. And one of which is Sun Yi. His name is Sun
Mm.
Yi. He was a prisoner at a Chinese labor camp. Very fascinating story. I think a documentary was done about him. And
Yeah.
he writes us really like a proverbial SOS letter in a bottle,
Yeah.
which makes its way out of China and finds its way in the United States. And it's like a cry for help. Please take this to the human rights organizations,
Mm.
and then it goes down from there. But he describes he describes a lot of abuse and how he hung on, and just a lot of injustice towards
Yeah.
him.
Would you say he's the least known of the people in the book?
I would say Sun Yi, yes, he's the least
Mm.
known, and he mysteriously dies after he's released, uh,
Yeah.
which is another thing. But there is a kind of a spiritual movement in China called Falun Gong, and growing in popularity, and he was part of it. And evidently, the powers that be see that as a threat, or saw it as a threat, and they try to oppress it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of these people, I didn't actually realize Hitler was in prison. Whenabouts was that?
Well, he had tried to overthrow the government. His push,
Hmm.
the famous push he orchestrated, and he was actually working for the government and spying out on some grassroots movements.
Yeah.
And these beer hall movements, these beer hall uh, organizations or these events, he actually went and then he started to buy into what he had heard. And this was what in the 20 right after World War One. And then he becomes the speaker, which would becomes
Mm. I think you're frozen.
oh, I'm frozen. I'm sorry.
Yes. You
Am I
said then he
better?
became the speaker and then you went away.
Oh, he becomes the speaker for this what becomes the Nazi Party.
Yeah.
But then he gets put in jail for organizing this this attempt to overthrow the government. And then
Yeah.
that's where he sits down and starts writing these letters. It gets very popular, and Mein Kampf becomes a bestseller. Got about $1 million.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah. And the thing about Hitler is he did all these terrible things, but he did do one really good thing. You know what that was? He killed
He died.
Hitler.
That's right. That's right. He got rid of himself.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know what? And I always thought, unlike a Napoleon, Hitler is always going to be a contemporary figure because
Mm.
evil is always contemporary. As
Yeah.
long as there's evil, there will be a throwback, or at least we're cognizantly aware of that man.
Yeah.
And so it's good to know so we can recognize any other types of Hitler coming on the
Mm.
scene.
Yeah, he's always the benchmark, isn't he, really? Whenever somebody does something bad, he's compared to Hitler in some way.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. But the
Yeah.
more I learned about him, it's just incredible the things that they actually put together in their
Mm.
foreign and domestic policies, the
Yeah.
Nuremberg laws, the racial
Mm.
laws, things like that. Just incredible.
Yeah. And another one of these lesser known guys is Paul of Tarsus. Just tell us a little bit about
Oh,
him and his letter.
right, right. Paul of Tarsus. Well, he's actually Paul of Tarsus. We may know him in the church as the Apostle Paul, who
Mm.
wrote letter. He wrote the letter to the Colossians, the early church.
Ah.
And some people, think religion is in its own category and it's kind of mythical, but it's a primary source. You see,
Yeah.
I have a picture of the papyrus letter, and he writes from prison and says, "Remember my chains." And he's trying to help the early Christian church stay pure from all kinds of different ideologies and philosophies entering to the church because they don't have a Bible, they don't have scripture.
Yeah.
And so there's a risk that they're going to be sort of hoodwinked by all these new philosophies coming in, like
Mm.
Greek philosophy. So he's very, very clear about who Jesus is, who how we live the Christian life, but he reminds them, "I'm in chains here," before he's
Mm.
beheaded by Nero, in fact. So
Yeah.
yes, his is a it's a good letter. It's a very passionate letter.
Yes, absolutely. And have you dedicated this book to anyone, by the way?
Well, I'm a teacher, and
Mm.
I teach U.S. history at a school,
Yeah.
an inner city school, and a lot of the boys there, they're fatherless, and you profile the
Mm.
guys, and they may have a better chance of ending up in prison than actually graduating from college if you look at the
Wow.
data. And
Yeah.
so I've had students talk about reuniting with family members in prison, and so it's a real it's I kind of dedicate it to them. I'm very thoughtful about what's going on, and the young people in high school who don't have a lot of hope, who don't have high expectations, and who are aware that prison may be more. It's not an option, but that may just be where they're going
Mm.
because of the life that they live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you have plans for maybe more books after this one and maybe just other projects that aren't books?
Well, yes, I do. In fact, I mean,
Mm.
I always have books in my mind. I have one after this one. We're going to try to get some made into a movie.
Oh.
One of my earlier books called Mr. Gunderson's Home Economics. Uh, right, there's a big publisher looking to buy it, and we want to make sure everything's square. But we do think that prior book, Mr. Gunderson's Home Economics, will make a
Yeah.
great film, a great like a Netflix or something like that. And
Yeah.
then there's Destiny's Spear. That was my first book
Oh.
about the spear of destiny. That was the spear used to pierce the side of Jesus, and Hitler actually got that spear,
Well.
and General Patton took it from him. These are true stories,
Mm.
but they're a fun doing, but they've got significance even today, and I'd like to see them made into movies if I could.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where can we check out this current book, Five Letters from Prison That Changed the World?
Well, you can get that on Amazon. You can get it right. I just had a meeting a couple of days ago. You can get it on Amazon. They were in South Africa. I know in
Ah,
Britain you can get it there, and I don't know about
yeah.
Foyle's bookstore. You have Foyle's, right? The big
Mm.
London bookstore.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, they may have it. You may be able to order it through
Yeah.
them, but it is available right now on Amazon.
Yes, great. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been great to have you here.
Thank you, Tony. I look forward to talking with you again.